Some, the existential threat to democracy in this country. The person who will make this country go to the dogs is none other than William Samoei Ruto.
Ijulikane hata hapa Ruto mwenyewe alipeana over 30 million shillings kwa kiti ya MCA hapa Bumbuni, na ndio tuliambia watu wetu hizo pesa kuleni tu, lakini muwafunze funzo. Ile walitumia Mbeere North, because we know this is also complete misuse, and we are going also to clearly indicate which ministers were participating at that level.
Rampant bribery. Mbeere, the government spent not less than 700 million. IEBC is compromised.
Can Kenya's IEBC conduct a fair, credible, simple and verifiable election as currently constituted? This is the first time the Ethicon-led commission has conducted such a small by-elections in Malava and Mbeere North, and a government that openly mixes state power, public resources and political ambition.
That election, Mbeere, will not see the light of the day. We shall overturn it.
And as the dust settles over the constituencies of Malava and Mbeere North, murmurs of victory mingle with the cries of injustice. The official results have been declared, yet the shadows of suspicion still linger. A vow of legal challenge rises loud and relenting from the opposition.
The candidate called Leo Mudhende Njeru was not a registered voter. Panic in the government. They were not able to see such simple, glaring discrepancies.
Okay. The united opposition led by Kalonzo Musyoka, Mother Karua, Rigathi Gachagua and their allied teams are sworn to challenge both by-elections in court. Their charge sheet is long and heavy. Voter bribery, voter suppression, ballot manipulation, deployment of police and goons, and the use of state machinery to tilt the scales. The united opposition knows the terrain is uneven. They know the corridors of justice are often narrow. They know the courts may not deliver the verdict they dream of, yet still they are marching to court. Why? The Red Mic notes that the opposition will move to court for 3 reasons. One is to force transparency, to put every allegation on the national record, preserved, documented, and undeniable. And 2 is to delegitimize the victors. Even if a ruling is unlikely to overturn results, the stain of illegitimacy remains. And 3 is to prepare the battleground for 2027, when the stakes will be national, not local. It is not only a legal move, it is a political ritual, a role and a moral obligation, and a historical warning.
Does free and fair depend on a process of court, or it's supposed to be seen even before then?
Starting point is this. There are certain areas of good order that are incapable of legislation. You see, the capacity of Edward Muriu compared to mine is different. So you will not compel me to fly to Malava, yet you demand that Muriu cycles to Malava. You get it? But the most important thing is to go with the straight and narrow. What is free and fair? And it's easy to demarcate what is permissible and what is not permissible. It's not permissible for an appointed leader to go and campaign in an electoral process. That is straight and forward. So to the extent that this is capable of violation and being prohibited, then we're able to say with a measure of certainty that this election was not free and fair.
According to opposition, police were instructed, even pressured, to deliver predetermined numbers. That tallying centers turned into theaters where truth was pushed aside, and results became scripts rehearsed long before ballots were cast. Mbeere North was meant to be a simple electoral exercise. Instead, it became a national exhibition of the worst fears Kenyans whisper about elections under state capture. But why is opposition still going to court? If both sides know justice may not be served, if the courts remain corridors of uncertainty, why then proceed with the petitions? Because sometimes you don't go to court to win. You go to show the country what was done. You go to expose the rot, to force the system to reveal itself. You go so that when history writes its chapter, it will record that we tried to fight. And in that effort, legitimacy is slowly chipped away from those who cling to victory through coercion. The Red Mark notes that this is the fear of 2027. These two by-elections, tiny, local, easily dismissed, they may become the flames that preheat a national inferno. If intimidation is rewarded in Malava, if state machinery is openly deployed in Mbeere, if the IEBC looks the other way, if police officers take orders from politicians, not the law, then 2027 will not simply be an election. It will be a battlefield, a moment where tribes, generations, and hopes collide. For if today, during small by-elections, the signs of manipulations are this bold, then what will happen in a general election where the prize is the presidency? The IEBC, entrusted with Kenya's democratic soul, it could become willingly or unwillingly the spark that lights a fire too large to control.
Now, what is the way forward? The way forward, and as you've rightfully asked, is an evaluation of free and fair election only the preserve of the court? No, it's not a preserve of the court. The court is the final arbiter of this matter. But the people themselves can see and determine and declare that this was not a free and fair election. Let me go back to Malava, for instance. It is not an issue that is subject of debate. For a fact, the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs, who is also the Prime Cabinet Secretary, stated, and you can replay that clip, that he has appointed 2 people as ambassadors in consideration of them yielding their candidature in support of the UDA candidate. Look, we may want to circulate around this issue, but free and fair election can only be that which has been set out under Article 81. Let there be no corruption. Let there be no undue influence.
Right.
You understand? Let there be no intimidation and violence. I mean, you don't need further legislation on this. The Constitution has demarcated with precision. And it is my humble prayer and expectation that as and when these 2 petitions are lodged before the High Court, Mbeere and Malava, that there will be no intimidation of the judiciary, there will be no compromise of the judiciary, that the courts will determine this matter according to the law. I mean, we owe it to the Kenyan people.
Right.
And so as the united opposition prepares its affidavits, as the government just thumps its victory, as the IEBC defends its innocence, the question grows louder. Is this legal challenge the last line of defense or the first obituary of electoral justice? Because if the truth remains silent, if institutions remain compromised, if the ballot becomes a performance, then Kenya may not burn from anger, but from profound national disillusionment. This is the red mic.
But what happened in Mbeere? Instead of coming to campaign on a platform of the development, they came with goons and militia. Some collected from Kiandutu, others collected from Mathare, others collected from Kikuyu, and to me, some that stems the beginning of what we call a failed state, where the government hires goons. The goons are protected by the police to cause, maim, death and destruction the citizens. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to the laws relating to election, rampant bribery. We bury the government spent not less than 700 million. A small constituency of less than 50,000 registered voters. Today, if you go to Mbeere, you ask anybody, they'll tell you in those 2-3 months, they collect about minimum, average about 10,000 each. The inflation in Mbeere right now, there's so much money with so little resources to buy. So much money.
Is that so?
Oh yes.
How do you arrive at the tally of 700 million shillings?
We're counting. You saw it in the media. It's all over.
I'm asking you.
Number three is Sam.
Yeah.
Allow me to ask me a question.
Yeah.
And here, I'm not a social media guy to keep on following the.
That's what I'm asking. How?
So ask the guy who was on the ground. 10 days campaigning. 10 days campaigning.